Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming back after what I hope was an enjoyable lunch and taking part in this wonderful conference. First, before we get started, I did want to say, on behalf of the Edward M. Kennedy Institute for the United States Senate from up in Boston, Massachusetts, we just wanted to thank the Frey Institute and UCF for inviting us down here, specifically Dr. Dobson, Valerie, Laura, and Marcia for doing all this work to get us down here. We really do appreciate it, and we're really excited to be here. I also want to say, on behalf of the Edward M. Kennedy Institute, we did watch a portion of the earlier segments today, and the questions asked by this audience were really, really thoughtful and impressive. So I just wanted to give you all a round of applause for your work, because it's really, really impressive. The Edward M. Kennedy Institute, which I will, from this point forward, say EMKI, because it is shorter and easier to say. The EMKI works every single day with students just like you to talk about major pieces of legislation and historical pieces of legislation and civic discourse in general. And I think I'm pretty confident in saying, and I'm sure my colleagues will agree, that some of the discourse in this room today is some of the best stuff we've seen in the 2 years we've been doing this. So really, really impressive. The Edward M. Kennedy Institute, EMKI Institute, has been open for 2 years, today, actually. And in the past 2 years, we have had thousands, tens of thousands of students your age and below and above come through our doors in Boston to learn about civic education, to learn about civic discourse, to learn about how they can be involved in their governments and in their communities, and how the legislative system works in our federalist government. Now, we've developed a number of different tools to teach people how these things work. The most prominent of them is a program called the Senate Immersion Module, which is a 2.5-hour program where we build a piece of legislation from scratch. I would assume that you're a bit tired, and 2.5 hours of legislation building might be a bit too much for you today. Is that correct? That lady right there is like, no, let's do this. Let's build 2.5 hours. We'll do 10, no problem. And I understand. But it also requires a number of tablet devices, and we usually do it in a full-scale replica of the Senate chamber in our institute up in Boston. So we opted not to do that program today. Instead, what we opted to do was a shorter version of a Senate bill simulation that we call Today's Vote. Now, in this program, one of our staffers, Nate Gundy here, is going to be our presiding officer, and you are all going to be taking the roles of senators. Now, as senators, you will be tasked with casting a vote on an important piece of legislation that we will be discussing. Nate will introduce that legislation, discuss what its implications are, and who's for it, who's against it, and why it's happening in the first place. And then Christina Smars, one of our other chamber staffers, will be presenting the argument for the bill from the perspective of the senator that introduced the legislation. I will then be giving you the perspective of the con from a leading senator against the legislation. Now, throughout all this, on our screen here, you'll see what people actually see in our Senate chamber up in Boston. And on the bottom corner, most of the time, though at one point it does shift to the middle, you will see what is usually on people's tablets. This information is not necessary for you to take part in this program, but it is helpful for you to get the fuller experience. But don't feel like if you can't make out a word or something on the screen like you're missing something huge. We will definitely cover all that stuff throughout the program, but just wanted to let you know what you're looking at. Now, the legislation that we're dealing with today is called the Bridge Act. Nate is going to explain that in detail, but the Bridge Act, just generally, it's important to know, it deals with immigration policy in the United States. Now, as senators, after you hear us make speeches for and against this bill, as well as a general overview, we will open the floor to you, and you will be given the opportunity to voice your opinion for or against this bill, or just in reaction to the bill, from the perspective of a legislator. We'd like you to take on a perspective that you're comfortable with. So if you're, for example, sir, right in the corner here, where are you from? Great, so you're from Florida. So if you want to be a senator from Florida, then speak as a senator from Florida and consider the constituents and how they'd be impacted by this piece of legislation. However, If you decide today you want to be a senator from Connecticut or California, I wouldn't recommend Connecticut right now. It's really cold up there. But if you want to be from somewhere else, you can, if you want to take on that perspective. Just consider the implications that you think this legislation will have on the constituents that you represent. Now, without further ado, I do want to turn this program over to our Vice President. And so, without further ado, Presiding Officer and Vice President, Nick Gundy.
Good afternoon, Senators. Whoa. I'll be a little quieter. This is a strong, this mic is doing its job, and I'll let it do its job. So, Senators, you, attendees of this conference, have been asking some very thoughtful questions, but what we're going to look for from you at this panel is not questions, but statements. We'd like you to consider this bill not just as students, though that's a good thing to do, but consider it also as lawmakers, as if you were lawmakers elected to the highest lawmaking body in the United States, in the upper chamber of the highest lawmaking body in the United States. And you can be the senator from Florida. You can be a Democrat or Republican from Florida, or you could be the senator from Connecticut, you could be the senator from Wyoming, you could be an independent, you could be a Democrat, you could be a Republican. Senator, what state are you representing today? Senator from New Jersey. Do you affiliate with a party? Are you independent?
Democratic.
Democratic. So, Senator from New Jersey, you may want to consider what your party thinks about it, what the people of New Jersey think about it, but you can also apply your own beliefs. They elected you. Can we get a round of applause for the Senator from New Jersey? She had a really hard campaign. So, once we get to the debate portion, you'll have the opportunity to raise your hand and seek the floor. And then we'll give you the mic. So generally when a senator wants the floor, they say, Mr. President or Madam President, depend on who's presiding. Raise your hand. We'll get you a mic, and you can make a statement for this bill, against this bill, or even just in reaction to it, reflecting on it, without taking a position. I'll take on the role of the presiding officer, which means I'm just another senator, just like you, just another member of the highest lawmaking body in the land. Who's the president of the Senate? Does anyone know? That real president of the Senate? He just broke a tie vote. Yes, Senator. The vice president. Senator, what state are you representing today? All right, can we get a round of applause for one more senator, Senator from Florida? The senator from Florida clearly knows his Article 1, Section 3 of the Constitution, which says the vice president shall be president of the Senate. But usually, it's just another senator here substituting for the vice president. I'll be our presiding officer. And if the senator from Arkansas wouldn't mind seeing how to get this to advance the screens, we can get going. So the presiding officer is just there as a sub. The presiding officer is usually a less experienced senator given an opportunity to enforce the rules of the Senate, and then they become better at using the rules of the Senate for their own agenda as well. So I'll be a less experienced senator propped up here just to enforce the rules. One thing a presiding officer would not do, which I'm going to do today, break with tradition, is I'm going to describe the bill and talk about it. While you're presiding, generally you don't get to make statements for the bill, against the bill, or about the bill. But since you're all just now in your first 2 minutes of office, hopefully it'll be helpful if I provide a little bit of information on the Bridge Act. So, the United States has, of course, been a nation of immigrants since its earliest days. But immigration policy, or the collection of laws that control who can enter the United States, who can live in the United States, who can work in the United States, and under what terms, that has changed dramatically over the centuries as the country's circumstances have changed and as its leadership has changed. On June 15th of 2012, the Obama administration initiated a policy known as Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA for short. Anyone know about DACA? Can raise your hand real quick if you do? Excellent. So this policy gives unauthorized immigrants temporary permission to live and work in the United States without fear of deportation, provided they were younger than 16 years old when they first entered the country illegally. Successful applicants must reapply for this protected status every 2 years. Currently, about 750,000 people are DACA recipients, a fraction of the estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants living in the United States. While campaigning for the presidency in 2016, Donald Trump declared his intention to end the DACA policy. As of now, President Trump has not yet taken action against DACA and has described it as one of the most difficult issues he faces. However, the Trump administration has instructed the Department of Homeland Security to aggressively increase and expand enforcement of immigration law. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, or ICE agents, have been granted much broader discretion to investigate and deport immigrants than was allowed by either the Obama or the Bush administration. The Washington Post has recently reported that immigration lawyers are advising their clients against enrolling in DACA because they suspect it is now more likely that those who give their information to the government will be deported. In anticipation of any sudden changes to DACA, members of Congress have introduced legislation known as S-128, the Bridge Act, or the Bar Removal of Individuals Who Dream and Grow Our Economy Act. The Senate tends to like acronyms when they name a bill. This is a real piece of legislation, most recently introduced on January 12th, 2017, and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. There are 20 senators on the judiciary. It'll be up to them to decide how to develop or change the bill and whether they recommend it to the floor for a vote. Today we're going to treat it as if that has happened, that this bill has made it out of the Judiciary Committee, has been put on the legislative calendar, and has been brought to the floor with the agreement of majority leadership for a floor debate and a final vote. We're going to hear one statement for it, one statement against it, and then, senators, we're going to open up the floor to you, our visiting senators, to make statements on the Bridge Act. But very briefly, we should describe what the bill would do if it became law. So the following is a very brief summary of the bill's provisions, its basic legal ingredients. The Bridge Act would create a new temporary legal status known as Provisional Protected Presence, which would last for 3 years. Like the DACA policy, this protected presence would grant eligible immigrants temporary permission to live and work in the United States. It would extend this permission to current DACA recipients and to others deemed eligible by the Department of Homeland Security. Successful applicants must meet the following 4 requirements. 1, they must have been born after June 15th, 1981, and must have entered the United States before they turned 16. 2, applicants must have resided continuously in the United States starting at least 5 years before the DACA policy began. They have to have gotten here by June 15th, 2007 or earlier, and they must have been physically present in the United States on the date on which DACA started. 3, applicants must have either obtained a high school diploma or a GED, or be in the process of doing so, or be honorably discharged veterans of the U.S. Coast Guard or the Armed Services. And finally, 4, applicants must pass a criminal background check and be determined to pose no threat to national security or public safety. The Bridge Act and all those legal protections within it would expire exactly 3 years after it is signed into law. And that's the bill. And that is a lot to throw at senators in their first 10 minutes of office. Fortunately, before we open up the floor to you, we're going to hear from state senators who've been studying the bill. One of them is in favor and one of them is in opposition. You're going to notice, senators, as these senators debate, that debate in the Senate is highly structured. Debate in the Senate is perhaps unlike some political debates you may have seen on television in the past few years. Senators cannot interrupt each other, and senators address each other with respect and formality. This is to keep debate from getting personal and recognize equals in the Senate chamber even when you disagree. So senators address all the remarks to the presiding officer, who gets to be called Mr. or Madam President. And when they refer to another senator, they tend to do it in the third person. So rather than saying, you said this, I would say the senator from New Jersey said. And that's an effort to show respect and keep debate from getting personal. Feel free to adopt that etiquette yourself if you decide to join the debate. And now we're going to open up the floor. The floor is open for prepared statements on S-128.
Mr. President, seek the floor.
The chair recognizes the senator from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today in support of the Bridge Act. This is a sensible, humane, and urgent piece of legislation co-sponsored by senators in both parties. Now, unlike my Democratic co-sponsors, I believe that President Obama established DACA through an unconstitutional process. It was not a bad policy, but it should have been an act of Congress, not the executive branch. Following that logic, President Trump, therefore, would be right to reverse it. However, I do not believe that we should pull the rug out from underneath the young men and women who currently benefit from DACA. They came out of the shadows and registered with the federal government. They were honest. They were forthright. They should not be punished for that. Furthermore, I believe most Americans want to fix our immigration system in a humane manner. It's important to note our country stands to benefit from the many contributions these young people will make. 88 business leaders have already signed a letter to President Trump urging him to support the Bridge Act. This bill does no harm to American interests, and it would enable our president to repeal DACA without harming our economy. The Cato Institute estimates that the cost of deporting DACA recipients could be as much as $60 billion and could lead to at least $280 billion in lost economic growth over the next decade. Mr. President, this bill does not create any incentive for more young people to enter our country illegally. It offers simply temporary permission to live and work in the United States only to those illegal immigrants who have been here since 2007 or earlier and arrived before they turned 16. In order to qualify, these young immigrants must be students or graduates of American schools or have served in the American military. They also have to pass a criminal background check in order to satisfy the Department of Homeland Security that they pose no threat whatsoever. Currently, the DACA policy applies to only 752,000 people nationwide. It does not offer benefits like federal financial aid, and it does not offer a pathway to citizenship. Neither would the Bridge Act. What the Bridge Act does offer, however, is a compassionate, temporary solution through the proper constitutional channels. That's why this bill is supported by senators in both parties, despite our many disagreements over immigration. What we decide to do about the rest of our immigration laws is a fight for another day. Today, we can make a sensible and humane choice. I urge my colleagues to vote aye on the Bridge Act today. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Senator. The floor remains open for prepared statements on S-128.
Mr. President, seek the floor.
Chair recognizes the senator from Arkansas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise in opposition to the Bridge Act. I agree with my colleague from South Carolina that DACA was created through an unconstitutional process. Unlike my colleague, however, I believe that DACA is also a harmful policy. Constitutionally implemented or not, it rewards illegal immigration. Supporters of DACA insisted, when it began, that this was going to be a temporary fix. 5 years later, they're asking us to prolong this temporary fix and give it constitutional authority in the form of the Bridge Act. Supporters of the Bridge Act point out to the fact that it expires in 3 years. It, too, supposedly is a temporary fix. We've heard this before. Forgive my skepticism, but if the Bridge Act becomes law right now, will Congress be asking to renew these policies again in 3 years? And then again in 3 years? And then again in 4 years? At what point does this simply become permanent legalization for illegal aliens? In the past, misguided members of Congress have tried and failed to pass bills like this that go even further by offering a path to citizenship. My colleague from South Carolina supported such legislation in the past, which makes me worry that permanent legalization is indeed the ultimate goal of this temporary fix. All that said, those of us who seek saner immigration policy might be willing to support a bill like this if strong reforms were offered in return. Some have suggested it would be acceptable to continue protections for DACA recipients in exchange for reducing a number of work visas our country issues every year. The last election demonstrated that we have a clear mandate, not only to stop illegal immigration, but also to finally cut this decades-long flood of legal, low-skilled immigrant workers that hurt the American working class. Wages for Americans with only high school diplomas have declined by 2% since the late 70s. For those who didn't finish high school, they have declined by nearly 20%. Mass immigration accelerates these trends by increasing the supply of low-skilled workers. We owe it to the American workers to address this problem before we pass something like the Bridge Act. There is also the issue of border security. Congress should not pass the bill that rewards illegal immigration until we've taken steps to help fund the President's efforts to better secure our southern border. The Bridge Act seeks to extend the failed policies of the past. If its sponsors wish to further compromise the rule of law, they should be willing to compromise on policy as well. Since no such compromise is offered today, or seemingly in the future, I urge the Senate to vote no on the Bridge Act. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Senator. So now you've heard a statement for the bill and you've heard a statement against the bill. You may have a clear idea of how you would like to vote. But certainly those aren't the only statements that can be made on the Bridge Act. For one thing, we have provided statements here from 2 Republican senators who disagree on the legislation. And we're rather hoping we haven't exhausted debate just yet, because we've now arrived at what for us is the best part of our programs that we do most days at the Edward M. Kennedy Institute, because this is the part that's different every time. Yeah, unless no one says anything, and then it's the same sad silence. But that usually doesn't happen. So senators, we'd now like to open up the floor to you to make statements for the bill, against the bill, or even just about the bill. You're approaching this not necessarily as yourselves, although you are welcome to, and I would recommend, as my colleague said, taking a position that you feel comfortable with. So at this point, we'd like to hear any statements. This is terribly unfair. In the real Senate, your staff would help you write your statements. And there were periods in the Senate's past where senators waited years into their first term before making a statement on the bill. Some of Senator Kennedy's colleagues in the 60s considered him relatively impertinent because he only waited 17 months. We'd like you to do it after 20 minutes with no preparation. So would any senators be brave enough and gracious enough to offer us words for, against, or about the Bridge Act? Raise your hand, we'll get you a mic. Points to the bravest senator who launches debate. All right, we got one back here. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state up. So we were going to come with you to the mic, but yeah. So senators often actually give their statements from their desks. But you can, right there is great. Now you're among peers, and you can, give the floor. Senator, what state are you from?
New York.
Okay, chair recognizes the senator from New York. You have the floor.
I am in affirmation of this bill because the Bridge Act is a humane act that allows children coming from illegal children coming to the United States for better opportunities to have better opportunities. They have left their home behind for a reason because they don't get the same opportunities where they live. There are children who are coming in who are under 16 who had no choice in the matter. With our efforts being made right now, our southern border is becoming more secure. We have more guards at the moment, and we are building a wall around our southern border. We are at the most security we've ever had at our border, and we also have the most technological advances of any other country. We should allow everyone to have these opportunities. Thank you.
All right, whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator from New York. Senator from New York affirms the bill. Also addresses a concern from the senator from Arkansas that we need to be funding border security before we pass something like this, but the senator from New York says border security is at unprecedented levels of strength at the moment, and so affirms the Bridge Act and says it's not unreasonable. Would any other senators be willing to offer statements for the bill? Over here, chair recognizes, you may rise, Senator. What state are you from?
New Hampshire.
Senator from New Hampshire has the floor.
All right, so what this bill is talking about, children who came in, were as children, now contributing to the economy. But if they're contributing so much success to this economy, why can't they just put in the work to become citizens? We don't need this act on the books.
All right, whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator from New Jersey. We got a statement over here, and then we can go back there as well. So first over here, chair recognizes the senator from New Jersey. You have the floor.
I see what you're saying about how, like, they should just be citizens, but if they're coming in, like, they're not they're under the age of 16, then they don't really, like, know what they're doing. They have to be in America for a long enough time to be able to want to be a citizen, I guess. Like, if they're coming with their family, then if they have this, then they're safe. They're not going to end up being deported back to where they're from. So it's not fair of them to come here because their family wants to come here illegally, and then they're not protected at all. So, yeah, if they're here and they're safe under the bill, then they're fine. So I feel like it's a good thing because in a way it's still helping. Yeah, eventually they can't just rely on that. They should become citizens because if they want to stay, they have to be a citizen. But before they become a citizen, they need something to save them from being deported back to where they're running from.
All right, whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator. And a point, and we're going to go to this senator in a moment, point of etiquette. First of all, I want to thank the senator from New Jersey for addressing and countering the arguments from the senator from New Hampshire, and both senators remaining civil and respectful as they went over the issues, and that's exactly what the Senate is supposed to be at its best. A form of etiquette that we're going to try to enforce for it is actually, and I mentioned only briefly, senators tend not to say you. Instead, senators address the presiding officer. So if you want to take up what another senator said, and I'm glad that you did, because I think more senators should, you can address the presiding officer, too, about it, and then just refer to what the senator from New Hampshire said, or what the senator from New Jersey said. So rather than it's you, it's the senator from New Hampshire has this point, however, I. So well done. Thank you very much. And that'll be the etiquette we're employing. We got a senator over here. Yeah. Chair recognizes the senator from?
New Jersey.
The other senator from New Jersey has the floor.
Like Senator from New Hampshire said, why don't legal immigrants just apply for citizenship? Citizenship doesn't come in like 3 to 5 business days. It takes many years. Myself, my mom, it took her 20 years to get her citizenship. And it comes with a lot of money and immigration lawyers, and sometimes they're not even granted unless you have something to contribute to the United States. And like these children came and they probably had no choice coming with their family. So I believe that like the act should be supported because they're also contributing to the economy. They take jobs that certain citizens already in the United States do not want because it's not enough pay, and yeah.
All right, whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator from New Jersey. Citizenship does not come within 3 to 5 business days. It's a good phrase for a statement there. Well done. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state of?
California.
Senator from California has the floor.
As a 16-year-old, you don't have a clear view of what you want to do. Anyone here is a 16-year-old, but if you're a 16-year-old, you still don't know what classes you want to take, and if you do know, you still don't know how that class is going to be. Or even if you're a senior, you're looking at colleges, you don't know what college you're going to go to. You don't know what that college is going to provide. As a 16-year-old, if you come under this act, you're still worried. You're still worried about school. You're still worried about your job, a job, especially if you're providing for the economy. So, as the other senators have mentioned, it doesn't come from 3 to 5 business days, and it takes a long time.
All right, Senator, what state are you from?
California.
I missed it before. Thank you. Round of applause for the senator from California, pointing out to the fact that this applies to folk who entered the country perhaps before they were adults and really were making those decisions themselves. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state of
Illinois.
Senator from Illinois has the floor.
As the second senator from New Jersey said, citizenship does not come within 4 to 5 business days. She said it takes years. It takes a lot of financial money, And furthermore, it also takes a test that a majority of all of us would most likely fail. And until we amend the immigration process, the immigration rules, I will stand by bills like this, because this is a bill that supports humans. It does not just support America. And while it does support America, it also supports humans and Americans in general, and anyone who wants to become Americans who will improve America. This bill is simply an improvement upon America and the American society.
All right, whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator from Illinois. Says until there's comprehensive immigration reform, the senator from Illinois will continue supporting piecemeal bills like this. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state of?
Texas.
Senator from Texas has the floor.
All right, so I agree with this bill completely, not just because it will allow for an extended period of time for illegal immigrants to stay over here, but I feel like immigrants that are younger than the age of 16, they don't know what they're doing. It's their parents, and by this time they've settled into a home, a family, a life. So I feel like giving them 3 years to reconcile what they've done and what they should do to go back to the country properly, get a citizenship, and come back. So, yeah.
All right. Whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator from Texas. Well done. So yeah, and for some folks supporting this bill, it may be that they expect that citizenship or some extension will not be offered after 3 years, and so others may be hoping for more, but that's oftentimes the compromise that a bill needs to offer if it's going to pass. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state of
New Mexico.
Senator from New Mexico has the floor.
Now you see, one of the misconceptions my fellow senators have been having about this bill is that the people that are being addressed here have already been here for 10 years. This isn't 16-year-olds we're talking about anymore. These people could have become citizens by now already.
All right, so whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator. From New Mexico. If I want to hear more statements, but someone will have to let me know when we need to wrap up as well. We got the time. All right. Would any other senators be willing to offer us statements? For the chair recognizes the senator from
Idaho.
Senator from Idaho has the floor.
I agree with the senator from Texas, but instead of funding this bill, we should instead fund all the illegal immigrants that are here into becoming citizens already, because they're here looking for freedom. So why would we deny them freedom?
Sure. All right, whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator here. Would like to go further, would like to offer citizenship to undocumented immigrants. We're going to get to more statements. There's one thing I should mention, is that absent an act of Congress or an uncontested executive order from the president, the DACA recipients are not eligible for citizenship except in very limited cases. If they have an immediate family member who's a citizen, and they go through a process where they leave the country and re-enter illegally, working with the Department of Homeland Security, they may be able to be put on a pathway to citizenship. But unless they have those qualifications, just for the purposes of the debate here, DACA recipients, absent an act of Congress, do not have eligibility for a citizenship pathway. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state of
Kansas.
Senator from Kansas has the floor.
While it is a really big opportunity to come to this country at such a young age, they're coming from foreign countries, so they really wouldn't be able to really speak the language. And I personally have gone through the process of citizenship. And first you have to go through the process of residency. And the process of citizenship costs money, and you have to go through this test, which is really difficult. I've seen my parents really struggle to go through it, so it's a pretty difficult thing, and I don't think a lot of people would be able to do it.
All right, whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator from Kansas. And indeed, currently DACA recipients or recipients from the Bridge Act protections are neither full lawful residents nor citizens. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state of
Florida.
Senator from Florida has the floor.
I hear my colleagues as they say about the Bridge Act and how they either agree or disagree. However, in the state of Florida, we have one of the highest immigration rates, and we have a low graduation rate, 5% below the U.S. national average. So this act promoting immigrants to come into Florida, for my state at least, to come in here and actually attempt to graduate from high school and better themselves, it could cause a chain reaction, because as others around them see that they're trying hard to be able to better themselves, then other people will try hard to better themselves. And this could end up going nationwide.
All right. Round of applause for the senator. Thinks this could inspire American students as well. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state of
Maine.
Senator from Maine has the floor.
All right. So this is more of a statement. I agree with the bill. However, we need to ensure that this doesn't become, as the senator from Arkansas stated, a permanent solution. We need to use these 3 years' times to develop a better system to ensure that this doesn't become a permanent program, kind of like how they constantly raise the debt ceiling rather than making a solution for it. So by using this time to figure out a way to fix the illegal immigration.
All right. Whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator here. Doesn't want to kick the can down the road further. We have a senator up here. We'll go over here, and then we'll check down here. Chair recognizes the senator from
Nevada.
Senator from Nevada has the floor.
Gavel. I would disagree with this bill. A lot of Americans, as was stated before, the wages for Americans who only have a high school diploma is very low. And so by bringing in, encouraging immigrants to come into this country, we are diluting the workforce and making it so that there's a larger supply of workers, and so they are all paid less, overall decreasing the quality of life for all Americans rather than a select group of people who came here illegally. Many people have had their families in America for many generations. Who are we to deny them the right to a job compared to someone who's only been here for a few years?
All right, whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator from Nevada. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state of?
Rhode Island.
Senator from Rhode Island has the floor.
Thank you for all those of my colleagues that have contributed in this debate, but I am for this Bridge Act. Yeah. Basically, because as a child, I actually grew up in schools where there were children that were either born or immigrated from places, and their parents were immigrants, and sometimes they had a little more struggle than others, and they should be able to have the rights to be able to learn and not be able to be scared to be shipped back to a land that probably doesn't even want them, because even when we came, we call ourselves Americans, and we're saying, yeah, this is our land. Yet, I'm pretty sure the people who colonized here were from British colonies, and the people who were actually in this land were Native Americans. So shouldn't all types of immigrants should be able to come in this land and be able, especially after we finish stabilizing our ways for more immigrants to come. But for the ones who are already here, we shouldn't just bye-bye. We should just help them out, especially since they're no better than us.
All right, whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator from Rhode Island. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state of?
Florida.
Senator from Florida has the floor.
All right. We as humans or Americans do not give people the right to say who comes in America, who comes in, and who needs jobs. Wait, okay. Just because we've been here, just because our family's been here for years, does not give the right to give other people who are trying to make a difference in the world, who are coming from different countries, who knows their backgrounds, who knows what's happened to their family. We're giving them the right to come in, to make a new start, to give them the right of freedom we have as Americans. And the fact that people are saying they're taking our jobs is not right. They're not taking our jobs. They're working for our jobs. They're working for the right to come in and make a living. They're coming in because they want to be Americans. They don't want to be terrorists. They don't want to make a bad name for themselves. They don't make a bad name for their country. They don't want to make a bad name for their country. They want to come and start over, and there's nothing wrong with that.
All right, whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state of?
Rhode Island.
Senator from Rhode Island has the floor.
So according to the senator from New Mexico, some of these immigrants have been here for 10 years and haven't done anything to become legal citizens. And I recognize that this is true, yet the reason they haven't tried to become legal citizens is due to the fear of deportation. This act can make it safe for these illegal immigrants to become citizens without the fear of deportation.
All right, whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator from Rhode Island. We have time for 2 more questions. We can go over here and then over there. Chair recognizes anyone over on this section here. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state of?
Georgia.
Senator from Georgia has the floor.
To respond to the senator from Florida, we do, as Americans, have a right to decide who comes in and out of the country. We decide every 4 years with the presidential election, and we decide every 2 years with the midterm elections.
All right, whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator.
Right here.
Chair recognizes the senator from the, we're gonna, okay. Okay, we're gonna end with these 2. So here and then here. Senator from the great state of?
Missouri.
Senator from Missouri.
Yes. I just wanted to speak in response to the senator of Nebraska in saying that our country was built off of opportunity. That's what America is known for, and that's what the basis of immigrants is all about, is them coming here to have a better opportunity than where they would have had in their homeland. So saying that they don't deserve the jobs, I think, is unfair, because if they're working for the jobs harder than Americans, then I think that they deserve they deserve that because that's what they're coming here for opportunity and for a better life, and they're building it for themselves.
All right. Whether you agree or disagree, round of applause for the senator from Missouri. Last statement, I'm afraid. I could do this all afternoon. Chair recognizes the senator from the great state of?
Alabama.
Senator from Alabama has the floor.
All right. My statement is I disagree with the bill, or whatever it's called, because, hold on. Illegal immigration is very dangerous, and yes, that is my statement.
All right. Round of applause for the senator from Alabama. Yeah, we got to move to a vote. In the words of a famous showman, we got to leave them wanting more, senators. We'd love to hear from more of you, but at this point, for purposes of time, and we'd love to talk after because we're still at this conference, we have to move to a vote. Now, there are a couple things to consider before we vote. I'm going to have my colleagues become legislative clerks now, and they're going to take a vote from hands once we open up the floor. Few things to consider. One, once again, the provisions of this bill. What this bill proposes to do is extend protected provisional presence, protection from deportation, and authorization to work to those who entered the country illegally before they turned 16 and have been here since either before 2007 or before June 15th, 2007. So roughly 10 years or more. And then this bill will expire with all the legal provisions in 3 years. And it'll be up to Congress if they want to do something else. One thing we should also clarify is while the senator from Arkansas has talked about adding compromises to this bill and perhaps lowering legal immigration to come in, that is not what's offered here today. And we are arguably talking about a different group of folk. Oftentimes senators want compromises and things added to the bill. The Cato Institute estimates that the average DACA recipient is currently in college and is about 22 years old. Now, that doesn't mean that all DACA recipients are going to college, but that is from the assessments that have been put in by think tanks, so that's important to keep in mind as well. You also want to keep in mind what your party thinks about it. We saw Republicans disagree, but you may feel pressure from leaders within your party to vote one way or the other. You don't have to vote with your party, but they do help fund your campaigns. They will decide how much they want to help you in your next election, and presumably you join them because you agree more with their platform. That said, your most basic constituency is the people of your state. Those are the American citizens who voted you into office. Those are the citizens who can vote you out of office. You are here to represent them. But you do so in a national legislature, so you can't be overly local in all your considerations. You have to consider what's good for the nation. And your own beliefs are legitimate. You can apply your own beliefs. The citizens of your state learned about you when they voted for you. You are now democratically authorized to apply your own judgment. And with that, senators, we're going to start with the yeses. With all senators voting yay, or as they say in the Senate, aye, please raise their hand if you want to pass this bill. So my colleague from Arkansas will count this side, my colleague from South Carolina this side. Keep your hands up. I'll let you know when they can go down. We want to get all votes. Keep them up. We want to get an accurate count of all senators' votes. On the count of three, would every senator who just voted to pass the bill fill the chamber with a loud, resounding aye? 1, 2, 3. Aye. All right, hands up if you're voting against the bill, if you're voting no. All right, if you are voting to defeat the bill, please fill the chamber with a loud, resounding no on 3. 1, 2, 3. No! All right. Now, a couple things, senators. Generally speaking, when senators deliver their votes, they don't do it by hand. They deliver it to the legislative clerk up at the rostrum of the Senate chamber. And even a thumbs up or a thumbs down can be counted as a yay or nay vote. They tend not to say yay or nay because yay or nay rhyme. So aye or no is how you pronounce it if you don't want your votes to be misheard. Now, it seems that a number of states have been admitted to the Union since the last time I presided over the Senate chamber because the yays in favor of the bill are 126 and the nays are 41. So overwhelmingly, with a filibuster-proof majority, this bill has passed the Senate chamber. Now, senators, congratulations. This is a momentous achievement. Legislation passes relatively rarely in the Senate. And to be fair to any given Congress, senators, appreciate the enthusiasm, it is supposed to be hard to pass legislation. The goal in this remarkably large and diverse and populous country is that the hurdles provided in the Senate to get to a final vote will help build consensus and make sure that all voices in the chamber are being heard as they do their best to represent their state and the good of the Union. Now, just because the bill passes the Senate doesn't mean it's law. They have to pass the House of Representatives as well. Passes in even slightly different fashion in the House. You have to meet in conference committee and come up with a new compromise bill, and then both sides have to pass that before it those chambers before it goes to the president's desk. Senators, we're just going to wrap up with some very brief polling, which I'm going to recommend not putting on the screen because the way I rounded up there. National polls are really just a sample of the country. They're usually about 1,000 people who make up a representative demographic sample of the same backgrounds of the voting population. Shortly after the presidential election, the Global Strategies Group asked a representative sample of the country if they wanted the new president to end DACA. 58% said definitively no, and only 28% said definitively yes, they wanted the president to end DACA. The rest expressed uncertainty. Now, that's just one poll, and if you find yourself disagreeing, that's fine. And if you voted against this bill, you're going to be, if you end up in lawmaking, you're going to be on the losing side of a number of votes, and that's okay too. It's not your job to vote with the winning side, but ultimately to represent what you think is best for your party and your state, and especially your state and the nation, and to vote accordingly. Guys, this was excellent discourse today. Thank you very much for your enthusiasm and your eloquence. Give yourselves one more round of applause. Session's adjourned.
Ladies and gentlemen, oh, we're not done with you yet. Ladies and gentlemen, honestly, I know there was a resounding cheer just then, but I want to give you a really proper formal round of applause because that was phenomenal. I have not seen a debate like that on this bill ever, and we did it for 30 days, so congratulations. Really good. At the Edward M. Kennedy Institute for the United States Senate, one of our main focuses is trying to help prepare younger people for their responsibilities in civic life, to understand the legislative process and to engage in the legislative process. Now, you can do that by becoming a senator. But as we know, most of us aren't going to become senators, though I'd venture to guess that a number of you probably will. You could also do it in the House of Representatives, but most of us aren't going to be in the House of Representatives. But you can do it in local government, you can do it in communities, and you can do it with regional and national activism. You can do it in a lot of ways. I am heartened by going through this process with all of you this afternoon because if the United States ends up in hands of people as competent as you folks are at the age of 16, 17, then in the next couple of years, things are going to be pretty impressive. Now, if you enjoyed this program, and we hope you did, you can always come and visit us up in Boston. We encourage it. But you can also do this in your own classrooms. We have developed, I believe, 22 of these at this point. They will soon be available on our website. However, we've packaged one of them on reauthorization of use of force in Iraq. And it is available, as well as the speeches that you just saw here today, on this website right here, emkinstitute.org/resources/UCF. And that is available for download. You can bring it to your classrooms with you. You can encourage your teachers to download it. And every month, you can do a totally new debate in your classrooms just like this and figure out how to debate each other on important issues that are relevant and being considered in the Senate in that month. So again, congratulations. Thank you so much for your time and for participating in this program. And we look forward to seeing you in Washington and in your capitals and states all over America. Thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if I get your attention, please. On behalf of the Lou Frey Institute, the Bipartisan Policy Center, the American Security Project, UCF's Department of Political Science, and all of our Edward M. Kennedy Institute, of course, and all of our speakers and panelists, and of course Congressman Gonzalez, who just back there. Thank you so much for coming, and we do hope that you enjoyed today's session. This is the end of the program, which means you now have to go back to school. Okay? But again, sorry to disappoint you. So what we will do is we will dismiss by schools out the back door. So we'll start with the school back here, and then here, and then back there. Okay? So thank you for your time. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you. Yeah, really good.